that you all are quite familiar with, and their situation at quarterback. The standoff between Ryan Fitzpatrick and the Jets has been going on for months. The Jets' reported offer of 3 years, $24 million taken off the table, but Fitzpatrick has rejected it. The Jets are now only 2 weeks from opening training camp and would have to lean on Geno Smith if no deal is reached between the two sides. How in the world, Don, is this going to play out with Fitzpatrick?
I think it's going to play out where Geno Smith is the starting quarterback of the Jets in 2016. He's 25 years old. He's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. They want to see what the kid can do. They're looking for a franchise quarterback. I think people are looking at the Jets settling for Geno Smith. I think all along they wanted Geno Smith. When McCagney took over, he got Fitzpatrick to be the backup to Geno Smith. IK changed all that. And now they have a chance to go back with the weapons that they acquired over the last couple of years to have their young quarterback, a former second-round pick, be the guy. Fitzpatrick is 33 years old. They can't sign him to a one-year contract because of cap restrictions. He's not the future of the team. Jet fans have to realize that I think the plan may have been all along not settling for Geno Smith, but wanting Geno Smith to be their starting quarterback.
See, I 100% disagree with that. I don't think Ryan Fitzpatrick was brought in by Mike McCagnon to be the backup. I think he was brought in as an insurance policy because Geno Smith isn't McCagnon's guy. That was a John Idzik pick. And I think he'd seen enough of Geno Smith to realize that we need a solid veteran that knows Chan Gailey's system. And remember, the reason Geno Smith was given the starting job in training camp is because Ryan Fitzpatrick was coming off a broken leg. And from all accounts in OTAs, he was terrible. So now Geno gets punched in the face, which, having been a professional athlete in a locker room, I could only, that'd be like someone walking up to Henrik Lundqvist and punching him in the face. It would never happen. You're not going to punch your starting quarterback in the face if there's a level of respect for him and his leadership. So that right there for me says, I'm all set with Geno Smith. I mean, forget the fact that in 11 and 18 in his career as Jets starting quarterback, I'm fine with that. But when you have so many players, the nucleus of your team, right? So here at ESPN, we powerfully rank things. And when you powerfully ranked the best wide receiver duos in the NFL, #1 was Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker, 26 combined touchdowns. Now you make it triplets, and you had Geno Smith instead of Ryan Fitzpatrick in the mix. Now they're 24th.
Now, I'm not going to take it from either angle. I think both of you guys have good points. I'll tell you this. I'm just looking at it from a Fitzpatrick point of view. And I think the truth is somewhere in the middle between you guys about how the Jets feel about Geno. But I do think every day Ryan Fitzpatrick sees his value as high as he does and waits, the worse it gets for Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Oh, I know.
We are approaching training camp. And Geno Smith is practicing right now. He's out there playing, and he's getting treated. Just this week, an article came out, one of the first articles written about Geno Smith and the Jets without a mention of Ryan Fitzpatrick. It's like Ryan Fitzpatrick doesn't know what his full resume is. It's like he's only looking at last year and doesn't know. The Jets have a whole body of work to look at, and it's not worth the money he thinks he's worth.
He's banking on that they can't possibly want Geno Smith to be their starting quarterback. Eventually they'll cave. And Rick, you're right. I'm sure they're not in love with Geno Smith. They obviously saw the lack of leadership. They saw the interceptions, the bad decisions that he made when he was younger. But they also realize he's young, and it's a franchise that needs a young quarterback and a franchise quarterback, and I think they're willing to take the chance to see in this last year of his contract, maybe we can have something here, because that's the guy you want to build around, a 25-year-old, not a 33, going to be 34-year-old that has the resume that you're talking about.
And that's a great point, Don. And here's the thing. Like, they can't sign him for the one-year deal he would want, so they have to give him 12 up front and then less the following year. 6.
Spread it out, yep.
Spread it out. He doesn't want that for whatever reason. But the bottom line is, how long did they see Ryan Fitzpatrick as this team after this year? You're going to go 34, 35-year-old Ryan Fitzpatrick? That's the future?
Well, sorry, Jet fans, you're probably looking at an 8-8 season. Tougher schedule, a lot of issues. The team actually may improve.
8-8 regardless who's under center?
Yeah, I believe that they're looking at, don't fall in love with 10-6. It was an easier schedule. A lot of things broke their way. They can actually improve as a football team and win less games because of their schedule. So if I'm going to go 8-8, do I want to go 8-8 with a 33, 34-year-old that has got no future with the organization?
Let's be clear, a journeyman
quarterback. Or maybe we catch Geno Smith finally maturing. Remember, Phil Simms was an injury machine when he first came in, and then he leads the Giants to a Super Bowl. A guy like Jeff Hostetler sitting on the sidelines and then finally getting his chance and winning. Sometimes guys could be late bloomers. I think they want to just see maybe he's matured into the quarterback that the previous regime thought that they drafted. I'm not saying they're fully in love with him, but because of the age and the contract situation, he might be the better option long-term for them.
A couple things here for me is I can't sit here and argue that Geno Smith's ceiling is not higher than Ryan Fitzpatrick. But if you told me Ryan Fitzpatrick gives me the 31 touchdowns again this season for the Jets, then he's worth the $12 million he's asking for, because in my estimation, Christian Hackenberg is probably going to be your quarterback of the future, or you hope so if you're Mike McCagnon, right? I can't think of a better veteran quarterback to bridge that gap to Christian Hackenberg, who's been, by all accounts, horrendous in OTAs, than Ryan Fitzpatrick. He has a relationship with Chan Gailey. And listen, this was something that Bryce Harper said at the All-Star game. He's talking about Daniel Murphy. And sometimes athletes, when asked questions, you can either gush about somebody or you can kind of, the less you say, the more you say. Bryce Harper went out of his way to talk about Daniel Murphy being the MVP. When you hear guys talk about Ryan Fitzpatrick, glue guy, leadership, all your best players go out of their way to let you know how much they love him. And you can't put a price on that, because I'm telling you right now, this team, with the schedule they have, first 7 weeks, you can't afford to have any distractions. And you already have one with Mo Wilkerson, and the longer this goes on, the worse it is for Geno Smith. Because now Geno Smith's constantly looking over his shoulder going, when's this deal going to get done? When's this deal going to get done? And it's going to affect him.
Don, if they're interested in Geno Smith, if that's the direction they want to go, why haven't they moved on verbally, outwardly from Ryan Fitzpatrick?
That's a great question, just because I guess they believe that, for at least from the beginning, that it would probably be a PR disaster if they just announced that Geno Smith is going to be our guy, coming off of what happened with a lack of leadership.
Well, and the way New York felt about him before.
And then Fitzpatrick coming off this season. But if you've noticed, as this negotiation has gone on, or lack of a negotiation, the public perception is starting to swing away from Fitzpatrick. So maybe that was the design, like, hey, we'll put out feelers, let the fans know that we want to bring Fitzpatrick back. Now they've painted Fitzpatrick as the bad guy. He doesn't want to be here. Now some of the players beginning to talk up Geno Smith. I think that probably was just a PR move to try to get the fan base backing Geno or Plan B, because if we're having this conversation a few months ago, people are going nuts that Fitzpatrick isn't re-signing. I'm not sensing that from Jet Nation now. I think they're ready to move on. They're almost insulted Fitzpatrick is playing hardball with
Rick,
the Jets.
let me ask you a question.
Yep.
So what if you're Fitzpatrick and they're offering you, it's 12 the first year, right, and then 6 the 2 following?
Yep.
What's so bad about that? They'll probably pay you the 12 and then cut you after that anyway.
Well,
what's such a
it's your last deal, right? So if you sign, you lock yourself into 3 years, and now it's their options for years 2 and 3. If you do give them 31 touchdowns, now you're not a free agent. Now you can't restructure a deal. You're in the same position you are now, where you have to, but now you're making $6 million, and the year after that, $6 million. You want the control. So he says, yeah, $12 million 1-year deal. That way, if I'm that confident in myself, I'll bet on myself, go to be a free agent again next year and make that similar kind of money. He's not. He hasn't come to.
What a risky bet it is with the career he's had.
Offers.
Well, and where's he going to go?
But how many times have you seen quarterbacks go down? This is what I'll say about the Jets. Is this Mike McCagnon? He goes into Woody Johnson's office. I'm sure every GM sells a 5-year plan, correct? So you sign Revis, you get Brandon Marshall, you make all these moves. You're going from 4 wins. Do you really think if you're Mike McCagnon, you told Woody Johnson, first year, spend all this money, we'll go 4 to 10 wins, week 17, we'll control our own destiny and possibly make the playoffs? There's no chance. This is fast forwarded to year 3, so you don't extend Ryan Fitzpatrick, you don't extend Muhammad Wilkerson. Now you're looking at going, all right, Jets fans expect us to take a step forward, and our schedule's that much harder. So how do you keep this momentum going when you know, to a man, you look in the mirror and go, I don't care who's under center.
We probably can't do better than we were last year. You're right.
When does it start handicapping the team?
Has
it already?
I think it probably has a little bit, because I think in football it's a little bit different. I'm used to a hockey locker room. It's you have the offensive side of the ball, the defensive side of the ball, and from all accounts, between Darrelle Revis, I mean, we've had Nick Mangold, all these guys come on the shows and talk about how much they love Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's that glue guy that brings everyone. They love him. So I think if you're one of those guys, and you always talk about this, you sign Matt Forte. He's a 30-year-old running back. You have Brandon Marshall, who's 32. The core of this team is ready to win now. So as a GM, as a coach, Todd Bowles wants to win now. That's what every coach wants to do. It's not necessarily always the GM's plan. They wanted to make the best decisions for the organization. But how do you sell that to your team? We had a chance to sign Ryan Fitzpatrick, which would, in my opinion, be our best foot forward, regardless of the schedule. But because we don't want to pay him, we're going to go with Geno Smith. How do you sell that to a veteran guy that needs to win now?
At the same time, if they get to training camp and Ryan's not there taking snaps, how does that start affecting people? As much as they love him, it does start turning a little.
Right, you know as a player that once they open camp, whoever the quarterback is their quarterback.
Yeah.
You can't worry about the guys that aren't there. You only worry about the guys that are there. So when camp opens and Geno Smith looks like the #1 quarterback, they'll make the adjustment.
But unless they have made a definitive turn of the page, there are going to be questions and distractions, and all the players are going to be dealing with the Fitzpatrick or Smith situation, which I do then think starts to affect.
Well, I think the question you asked, Don, was the perfect question. If you were sold on Geno Smith, then just end this now. The contract negotiations are off, the offer's off the table. I mean, you've had Todd Bowles say that Fitz is the starting quarterback. You've had McCagnon say that Fitz is the starting quarterback. I mean, you can leak whatever you want in the media, but in those closed-door meetings, I think they all hope that Ryan Fitzpatrick comes to his senses and signs. But it is, I mean, it's good business. It's Mike McCagnon saying, this is what you're worth. I'm not going to overspend for it. But the question I asked yesterday on the radio was this, Don. If you look at the Muhammad Wilkerson situation, right, it's $15.7 million. It's a franchise tag. Who wins you more games? Is it Mo Wilkerson that wins you more games on the defensive side of the ball, or would it be Ryan Fitzpatrick if you just got rid of Muhammad Wilkerson, or you found a way before to trade Muhammad Wilkerson and give Ryan Fitzpatrick some of that money.
Now, really quick, think about this. The rumored first offer was between $7 and $8 million, right? What is that? That's backup quarterback money. Is it possible that their interest in bringing Fitzpatrick back totally was having him back up Geno anyway? See, everybody falls in love with those numbers last year. Maybe the Jets just didn't buy into it.
Well, I don't think, and Peter spoke to this as far as career is concerned, I think that was his ceiling. I think that's as good as you expect from Ryan Fitzpatrick. And he was tremendous. I think we all underestimated how good he could be. It was just the perfect mix with him and Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker. It just worked perfectly, Chris Ivory. But I think you get into a situation, the one thing you can criticize Mike Maccagnan for is, as you see how well he's playing, as you see all this team camaraderie kind of starting to build, why not extend him? Knowing that when we get into this free agent market,
I'll tell you
you're going
what.
to see guys like Brock. I mean, but Peter, how do you, as if you're Ryan Fitzpatrick?
No, and you see Brock Osweiler's money. I get it. It's very tough. But here's the bottom line. There's a disservice that Ryan did to himself, and the same thing happened with Kirk Cousins in Washington. In the last game of the season, that really meant something when they wanted to find out, is Ryan Fitzpatrick different than the Ryan Fitzpatrick of old? Is he really a beast? Let's be honest. You don't blame the whole game on him, but he didn't show up week 17, right? And they don't make the playoffs. I think he would have sealed up his money with a great performance that week, and he didn't do it.
So why can't we look at it and say they brought him in to be a backup quarterback? They offered him backup quarterback money that maybe they just didn't buy into 2015, and they're not swayed and just say, sorry, Fitz, you're a backup quarterback.
Because the
Geno's our
alternative
guy.
is Geno Smith.
Right, that's what changes
I
everything.
think that's what a lot of people think.
And again, I'm not here to defend Geno Smith. His resume is his resume. But he's young and he's also a free agent. What if he backups Fitz? Fitz ends up turns into the quarterback that he was in Houston, in Buffalo, in Cincinnati, his entire career. And then Geno Smith walks as a free agent, and at 26 he lands a job and becomes the next great quarterback. Right?
It's something you have to think about.
These are the things that Geno Smith dreams about at night.
There are other people who dream about it as well.
About a few, they literally have not had a franchise quarterback since Joe Namath. Now, I'm not saying that Geno Smith is going to become that, but he's the age, and he hasn't really played with weapons to where they make feel, why not give this a shot? We know what Fitzpatrick is. That ceiling you talk about, I think they look at that as being worth more than what you consider.
And last thing in defense of Geno, and there's been a lot of Geno defense, let's be honest. I remember talking on the show last year, before Geno got punched in the face, we did think, this is going to be his real opportunity to get a look. They always were sort of half in, half out. They gave him the keys, and then they take them back a little bit. Last year, he was going to get the keys. Now, Rick, you made a great point. The fact that he was even able to be punched in the locker room is very telling. But the bottom line is I do feel for the kid. He was young. He may have made mistakes, which may have led to that situation. But if the worst-case scenario happens here and Geno ends up getting his opportunity, there is a silver lining there. He is a talented guy. I do think he has a higher ceiling than Ryan Fitzpatrick. And your best-case scenario is somehow Fitzpatrick somehow ekes out another season like last year. But do we really think that happens again? I'm not sure.
But like Don mentioned, though, now Geno Smith's going to be a free agent. So what if Geno Smith does give you, he gives you the exact same numbers as Ryan Fitzpatrick gives you, right? Now you're looking, he's on the open market. Brock Osweiler played what, how many games? Seven career games, and he got that much money. What do you think Geno Smith is going to be asking for? And you still have Muhammad Wilkerson you got to deal with.
And Geno, and because I'm with you, I'm not in love with Geno Smith, but he never got a chance to play with Marshall. He never really had a chance to play with a healthy Decker. Seems like Decker was always hurt that first year with Geno. So I'm kind of curious to see how he might be able to perform with Forte out of the backfield, with a healthy Marshall, a healthy Decker.
Fitzpatrick can end this conversation. He can end this conversation. That's the bottom line. End the conversation.
This is the beauty of New York, though. It's so funny because first couple weeks, we need Ryan Fitzpatrick back. God forbid we don't want Geno Smith. Now, as you start to see things leak out, you see the offer, people calling in, no, forget it. We've seen what he is.
Yeah,
that's all he is.
Fatigue, for sure.
Yeah, you wear out because he's not there. And again, that's why from the beginning I've been saying, Ryan, every day you wait. Listen, you can bet on yourself. I get it. But, dude, you could end up, shout out to DJ Khaled, playing yourself. So don't not get a job because of this, Ryan.
Well, you guys have referenced Wilkerson a few times in this conversation, another situation that the Jets are monitoring closely as he has been tagged with that franchise tag, disgruntled with that. We will discuss that, I'm sure, a little bit later in the show when we continue the AFC East conversation. But for now, we move on. The Knicks get a huge makeover this offseason. So is Phil Jackson moving the franchise in the right direction? I'm sure our New York radio guys will have tough takes on this after the break.
We're gonna light the sky up tonight.